Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another installment of League Unlocked. That is a mark. My name is Eric. We're recapping weekend action. Always a lot to get through, and we start in North America, as always, because you had maybe the game of the year. We're talking Team Solo Mid versus 100 Thieves. Anytime you're getting 40 minutes on the Rift, you're getting 7 different dragons, 3 barons taken, and 40 kills combined between the two squads. It's going to be a fun time on the Rift.
If people have had an issue with the LCS broadcast, they cooked up their special recipe for it. They said, hey, give us a long TSM game. Give the TSM fans a lot of time with their players. And I don't know if the TSM fans come out of this one feeling all that great about it, but I'm sure that they feel just a little bit better than the 100 Thieves fans, because I don't think anybody really was the big winner out of that one.
And the key with the long TSM games, it's not just a 40-minute game. It's a 40-minute game that they have a sizable lead that they throw against a bottom-tier team. That's what you got to get every split.
Yeah, there certainly are questions as far as the decision-making and what happened in this game to lead to 100 Thieves being able to actually go from losing a lot of points in this game to going ahead to being massively ahead and then to throw it back into the favor for TSM.
And Biofrost had some absolutely insane hooks to get them back into this game after they had thrown it. And listen, sure, TSM had some bad plays, but Ryoma, who was that, Mark? Who was that playing mid lane for 100 Thieves? Because he looked like a top 3 mid in NA all of a sudden.
This wasn't just a fluke or a combination of the TSM mistakes on that side. This is, I think, a very clear indication of that continued growth for Ryoma that we have been seeing playing in this starting role for 100 Thieves with this organization, with Papa Smithy. I think this is what we're seeing, that potential come through right now. Much better performance. And look, we've seen this from Ryoma against TSM. We had that in the playoff series where Ryoma did have that one major pop-off performance on the Orianna. So needs to string these a little bit more together, but certainly was not certainly not a bad part in this series and was maybe one of the positive players to keep watching in this game.
There's enough glimpses and flashes of that potential, which is absolutely keeping him in that starting spot. Another 2-0 weekend for Cloud9, but I mean, they completely smashed Immortals as they changed their entire roster, basically. But I want to jump back, way back, to the Friday in the match against Team Liquid, because for the first time this split, and maybe not many of them in spring, one game against TSM, it was competitive, and Team Liquid had a gold lead before 15 minutes, and you heard the broadcast, what? C9's in a deficit. Oh my gosh, Team Liquid's in the driver's seat. It's all over. Quickly turned around, but it's one of these rare games where it was actually somewhat competitive in a Cloud9 match.
Yeah, I'm taking 2 takeaways, well, maybe 3 from this one. 2 on the side of Team Liquid. One, that yes, this is a sign that these are the players that we have been talking about and having faith in throughout the entirety of this offseason, saying that yes, everything with Double Lift, everything that happened in that spring split was a total fluke. This is not what you should be expecting from this roster. The level of play that they can deliver wasn't that. This is, I think, a lot closer to what we should have been seeing in the spring, this here now in summer. But you said it, that was only the early game because it took enough time for Cloud9, and especially it's unfair. The Blabber advantage is just too big for Cloud9 because the way that they are able to climb back into those games and the way that he plays is just extraordinary.
Yeah, if he keeps playing like this, it's the easiest back-to-back MVP that you'll see in LCS history. Clearly a tier above any other jungler in North America. Even somebody like Broxa, who we've seen countless times on the world stage perform. Blabber absolutely annihilated him and is the main reason, even more in summer so far than in spring, as to why Cloud9 has looked so dominant. We talked about 100 Thieves losing to Team Solo Mid. After the games this weekend, your boy Medius, if you remember, it's his second stint on 100 Thieves, and he tweeted he's getting benched for the next week, and he tweeted, I'm going to get this right, I'll just say the tweet exactly. Pretty weird to hear the players on my team didn't know about it or agree with the decision. All credit goes to Zeke's, Jungle Juice, and Papa Smithy. Clearly the people not on the team know what's best for it. Now, I'm going to be bold and say it's probably not great for your career and future as a pro player to just blatantly and publicly poo-poo on your GM and coaching staff. about their decision, especially when you have clearly been one of the biggest underperforming members on your team.
Right, and that's my problem with it. It's not about, whether Medios can fulfill this role. He can, and he can do very well in this role for 100 Thieves. We just haven't seen that this split, and whether that's, again, he has to take the majority of that share of his individual performance, but there certainly is part of that on the rest of the team. And my only issue really about this is, yes, I know you can say, well, it should be pretty clear. He should be able to pick up on these type of hints. It sounds like there was nothing very clearly laid out that, if this level of performance, if these games, these mistakes keep happening type of thing, then we're going to be making a roster change. I don't think that maybe was communicated, judging by how surprised he seems in this tweet or how emotional it is. But at the same time, you can talk about that and say, look, if you're asking for that type of warning, you should be able to know that this is coming from your performance, that this is unacceptable. And for a veteran like Medios at this point in time, I would expect more.
Yeah, a guy who's been around that long, you would think the professional nature of things, maybe it's something to do with the 100 Thieves organization again benching him, which is what happened the first time around with him. But there's no question he has not been to the LCS level that 100 Thieves needs, and is one of the reasons why they're sporting this 1-5 record going forward. And it begs the question, or 100 Thieves, well, they already are, because we saw contracts and Poom, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name, is coming in as a starting support for 100 Thieves, and Contracts is their academy jungler going to be starting for them in week 4. Our other team's going to start doing this because we already saw Immortals bring, after the coach and GM are gone, it's the full academy boys. And Immortals are a little bit different because when you have Xmithy, Apollo, and Hakuo, those aren't quite your youth movement coming up, all guys who have been around for so long. But other teams need to start looking at this, and the number one on my list is Froggen. It's Froggen, Mark. Another not great week from him.
And we're guys that are fans of Froggen, historically fans of him, and want to see him succeed in this role for Dignitas, but that just hasn't been the case, and it has just not been. You're not able to justify keeping him in there and keeping that performance in there from what you have in academy. And that's not saying that, North America is some amazing talent factor. We all know it's North America. But when you do look in academy and you do realize some of the players and some of the results that are going on, these are guys that deserve at least a shot, and especially compared to the level of performance that's been going on in the LCS.
Dignitas, try something. Golden Guardians, who he continues to... he's a big concern for them. Bring up their academy support, Chime. I've never heard of him, never seen him play on the Rift. He's from Scouting Grounds. Give him a chance. What do you have to lose when you've already had a rough start for the Guardians? Because there is that talent factory there. Just ask Cloud9 when 2 of their 5 starters and the will-be back-to-back MVP was at Scouting Grounds. So there is talent
and
there.
I know, right, and I know it's a little bit of a different scenario, but when you're talking about Cloud9, you're looking at players like Licorice, like Blabber. Where do these guys come from? They started in these academy leagues. They started here. They came in and played on the regular stage, the LCS stage, with not a ton of experience. They all had to start somewhere, and that's kind of what we're getting at, is that give these guys a shot and see what you're going to get. I guarantee you will find a couple diamonds in the rough, and if you look at an organization like Cloud9, you can see how far that can take you.
It's not quite the same for Dignitas because Phoenix is the sub for Froggen, but some of these teams take chances and start these young players. Give them a chance. Your season looks doomed already anyways. We jump over to the European scene. Weekend action. Not a super week, just another regular week. But the standings in Europe, Mark, I'm confused. There's a bunch of teams at 4-3, and currently Fnatic at 3-4 after their incredible 3-0 start. Everyone was excited. They've lost 4 in a row, and they are currently outside of the playoff picture. And after week 3, there was honestly nothing positive about it. 22.5 average deaths they averaged in those 2 losses, and their goal differential at 15 was over 4,600 this week. Not many positives.
No, and we came into this split, myself, saying that this was playing, if they play at the perfect level, they're playing at their absolute peak, this is the best team in all of the LEC. They're nowhere close to that peak level of play right now and what has been happening. When you saw week 2 go down and the O2 and you know everything going on with Soraka, you thought, you know what? There are some nice spots here. There's some positive things to build off of, a couple mistakes, individual plays that maybe can go better. Which we should have seen in week 3 under the expectations of Fnatic and the level that the players can bring. And it was even more disorganized this week than it was last week. You didn't see any of those type of positives coming through. I think right now, Fnatic is trying to be a little bit too, fine picking as far as their compositions and things like that. Just keep it simple right now at this point in the LEC. You are definitely a strong team with coordination as well, but you got to keep it simple right now to get back on the same page.
They just went complete opposite of week 2. It's almost like they read comments and was like, ooh, Soraka for Reckless. We don't want to see that. We want to see him on a carry. And they're like, carry? All right. We'll build an entire comp that's around Reckless, and he's our only source of damage, and then he'll carry. Gotcha, guys. Oh, 0-2 again. I don't know what's going on with them. They're just taking mindless fights, just endlessly running in, even when it's almost... The spirit of Hylissang at his worst has taken over the rest of the team, it seems like.
And my big point is going to be on Nemesis. I think this is a player that absolutely can step up and deliver better performances. This isn't me going, man, Nemesis sucks. He's the only one to blame for this. That's not what's going on. This is simply saying that it's a clear indication that Nemesis' performance compared to what you should be able to expect from him is not at that level right now. And if it can get anywhere higher, anywhere better, I think you absolutely see these weekends, these results turn around for Fnatic. That's not saying that there aren't other issues that can help turn it around as well.
Yeah, there's just so much to go off of now with Fnatic to clean up. And we've seen them have 0-5 starts and then run it back at the end of the regular season, even take down G2 and become one of the favorites heading into playoffs. There's a long way to go for that. And to tell you the truth, the LEC is a lot more stacked now than it was in 2019 with talent across the board. So Fnatic has a long way to go. That's not where the crazy standings end. G2, 15-3 in spring. They're 4-3 in the summer split. Totally different than Fnatic because in some of their wins, they have looked fantastic. Remember, Fnatic shouldn't have even won a game against Misfits, so they should really be 2-5. G2 has still looked great in some of their wins. They dismantled Fnatic, and this is the 3-time champs. I have zero concerns for G2, even with Perks taking off the next week because of all the personal issues that he's had to deal with. Absolutely understand that, especially heading into Worlds where they're going to be playing so much. Even with Perks not playing for a week, even with them not playing 2 or 3 weeks, you know that G2, even if they come in as a 6th seed in the playoffs, they're going to be favorites. Maybe not favorites, but you'll be terrified to match up against.
Right, let alone the other factors that we can talk about. You're right that even if they come in as one of these last spots for the playoffs, as long as that full roster's there, it's still G2 eSports. That's what we're going to talk about, is that Fnatic hasn't shown us anything that's looked like the brand of gameplay that Fnatic has brought to the Rift over any of the stretches that they have been playing at a very high level. This G2 team, even when you're seeing them struggle, even when you see them come through with maybe just one win on the weekend, it still looks like G2. That attitude, that feel of the games are still that G2 feel. And that's why I still feel confident in saying that even at 4-3, they're going to find their way to get it going.
And the loss to SK was shocking because they got destroyed, outplayed around the entire map. Maybe that didn't look like G2. Sure, you could say that's a little weird, a little concerning. But hey, SK is a completely different team. Not necessarily roster-wise. Only one new player came in and the role swap. But Zazie and the rest of SK, I don't know what happened in the offseason. They look 100 times better than they did in spring.
Yeah, this is one of the ones that ourselves in the community, we missed this one. We thought that it wouldn't be enough of an impact, these type of changes. There was still going to be issues with the SK roster, let alone the changes have been enough to spark different things going on in the games for them. The big one I want to talk about, of course, and everyone loves to talk about, Crown Shot absolutely continuing that development. We talked about him being the bright spot on this team before in spring. Even more so now in summer. His play
Didn't think there'd be other bright spots, though.
That's the other side, right? Is that there are those other bright spots. There are other strong performances coming through for them, and that is why you're seeing SK put up the level of play that they have been. You're right in saying that I think that G2 still should be looking at them and saying, hey, this is still a win that we should be picking up on the schedule. But absolutely props to SK and what they've done this summer so far.
And so G2 Fnatic not at the top of the table, not really the favorites right now. What's going on? Who's at the top? Well, before the G2 versus Fnatic match, you had Mad versus Rogue, and those are the two best looking teams in the LEC. And the Mad Lions, my God, 6 games in a row now. You watch how cleanly they close the game out against Rogue. We've now seen them win games that are just all about fighting skirmishes, just team fighting, and they win those. They excel at those. They obviously have high mechanics across the board. And then Rogue, it was a lot slower paced, movements around the map, objective control, macro, micro. These guys have it all, and they prove that the playoff run they had was absolutely not a fluke. They're the best team in Europe right now.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on Rogue very quickly that, yes, this is the positives that we had wanted to see in spring. We didn't see all of them or enough of them at the time to get that continuation of growth from we saw last year. This seems to be much more of that nature of Rogue. But when it is the Mad Lions that you want to talk about, it is exciting because they were the squad that proved, the upsets and that level of talent in EU during the playoffs. And the best thing possible was thinking these young guns that have shown so much adaptation throughout the spring split already, seeing them continue to grow and learn from their experiences in that spring playoff. And that is absolutely what we've seen with them continue such a hot start and such a continuation of building their own identity and how they want to play the game of League of Legends. And especially having that own identity in the LEC of all regions is such a great strength.
And right now, Humanoid and Larson look like the two best mids in the LEC, with Caps not fully coming into form yet. Nemesis hugely underperforming. Larson and Humanoid look fantastic.
Hey, slot them right in, and it doesn't matter. I'll take an EU mid any day of the week.
And to the detriment of Fnatic and G2, they have propped up the competition level in Europe, and now teams like Rogue and the Mad Lions are taking the league by storm. LCK, LPL action across the weekend as well. There was not any insane matchups per se, but we jump right into Monday because PP God and the boys, V5 versus FPX. They already 2-0'd RNG for that elusive victory 5 to go to 5-1. They matched up against FPX on Monday. They couldn't evolve into victory 6 quite. The defending world champs got the better of them to move to 4-2. But what this does is prove that these guys are legit for playoffs and legit to contend maybe even higher, because it was a competitive series against FPX. Weiwei's Nidalee needs to be permabanned. That's it. Permabanned against them.
Oh, those spears are disgusting, the damage that comes through getting nailed by one of those. You're right. Victory 5 PP God. Man, we saw it come through in this series against FPX, where even if it's not the victory for Victory 5, we're feeling good because this is an indication that one of the historically worst teams in spring of the LPL is going to have a chance to fight for the playoffs in the summer. That's what I'm saying right now from what I've seen from Victory 5. Already picking up those 5 victories, being where they are in the standings surely helps. But this indication of how competitive they can be against a squad like FPX, this is going to be one of the teams fighting for a playoff spot. And that is huge props to Victory 5 turning things around from spring.
Yeah, and even dropping that game 5-2, they're still sitting second overall in the standings. And we talked about, listen, when they were 4-1, okay, they haven't really beat any of the top teams. It could be a fluke. They could be 4-5 the next couple of games or next couple of weeks. But 2-0 versus RNG when they were looking great and near the top of the standings, and then a competitive 3-game set. They got smashed in game 2 against FPX, but they dominated game 1, and game 3 was a little bit closer. So looking great for these guys as the future rolls on. Dragon X stays perfect in the LCK. It definitely shouldn't have been a 2-0 against the Afrika Freaks, but they were rocking some fun comps. Game 1, they had this hyper carry Ezreal, which a few teams seem to be trying, with the Karma top and mid lane Morgana for Chovy. I think it's underestimated how insane Chovy's champion pool is.
Hey man, you put him on anything and he's going to look like one of the best in the world. Continuing to deliver DRX the 2-0. I think this is one that you can't fault the Afrika Freaks too much for it, given just what DRX is bringing to the table. And I think that's
Except
something
for
that
game
maybe,
two at the end, you know.
yeah, maybe is a little upsetting for the Afrika Freaks, realizing that, hey, we're clearly outside of that top of the table teams. If you haven't realized it by now, this one against DRX is a clear indication of it.
Yeah, and they absolutely should have won game two. There was a couple big misplays from Mystics Aphelios, but the big story is 2 Aphelios games, 2 losses. Dragon X did it. You should get an extra series win if you win 2 games versus Aphelios. But yeah, Afrika for me are still probably the favorite for that 5th spot behind Damwon and the big 3. But for now, they're 2-2. Dragon X improved to 4-0. T1 was also in action on Sunday, and it was back-to-back MVPs for Kana. They went against Sandbox, who continue to look like clearly the worst team in the LCK. But Kana had some fun, and Summit did not, because he's playing Lucian top, and we know what happens Lucian top in Korea, Mark. It's terrible.
Yeah, unless you're someday and you're smurfing in NA, and then you can play Lucian top and demolish with it. Otherwise, we just have not seen it have anywhere close to the effect that I know a lot of these top laners want to be putting out and dishing out the damage when they're picking that Lucian pick. This was a series where, again, I'm going to wait at least another week, maybe a week and a half on Sandbox until I'm going to start really roasting them and waiting to see what we can get from Yamato, is his impact on the team. But again, this is one of those ones where as the weeks go by, you're kind of giving up more and more and more, and time running out for Sandbox.
Yeah, and for T1, I mentioned great performances from Kana. Got MVP in both of them. He had some slick outplays on Fleek, and at times, with the way Sandbox was just running face first into T1, it looked like their playoff series from a little while ago with how tilted they were. T1, man. 3-1 now. It was Elam, by the way, for both games. No cousin this series, but 3-1 for T1. But their wins are still only against Afrika. Okay, it's a good win, sure. Hanwha Life and Sandbox. But week 4 is where it gets crazy for T1. Wednesday, they're playing Damwon, and Friday they get Gen G. So here are the real tests now starting for T1.
Right, and this is not, getting to go up against DRX, who's obviously the team that's in our eyes right now at the very top of the LCK. But this is the big week for T1 right now in the summer to answer and say that, yeah, we are in the form that you can want to put us up against a DRX right now. Because if you're talking about their performance against Hanwha Life, that's not the squad that I want to be rolling up to against DRX. But if it's going to be a lot closer to what we're getting now, these type of performances, I think we can be a little bit more comfortable in T1 if they take down Damwon Gen G.
Yeah, and that's the big separation because all 3 of them are 3-1, and Damwon has looked surprisingly good early on in the summer split. So big tests for T1, and Kana had a great series. Can he do it against Nuguri? That's a big question for me.
Yeah, that's what everyone wants to see, because you're right. Damwon has certainly turned it around from what we saw, or the level of play that we saw from them in the spring. This is a lot closer to what we wanted to be seeing from Damwon. And I think that's something that they've continued from the mid-season cup is a couple takeaways and tuning points from there. They're looking better. So certainly eyes on that one against T1.
The star teams in Europe are struggling. Star ones in the LCK are back on track, and North America is North America. That's it today for League Unlocked. That's Mark. My name's Eric. Thanks for hanging out. Catch you on the Flippity Flop.